Hey there yarn artists, I'm Chanel, your crochet companion at Crochet Republic, and today we will make the head and body for Peter the Panda. You will need chunky yarn in your preferred main color and white, a 3.5mm crochet hook, a pair of scissors, a stitch marker, a row counter, a pair of solid black 12mm safety eyes, polyester stuffing, and a tapestry needle. For round 1, you will begin by placing a slip knot on your hook. Next, you will chain 3 stitches. That's 1, 2, and 3. You then want to identify the second chain from the hook and make a double crochet in it, and a second double crochet in it. This is your increase. In the next stitch, you're going to make a quadruple double crochet increase. That means you're going to put 4 double crochets into the same stitch. That's number 2, number 3, and number 4. You'll notice that your work is turning as you make the 4 stitches, and you have the opposite side of the chain facing up now. That is correct. You want to work into the next stitch, which is also the stitch where you made your first increase, and you're going to make another increase there by putting 2 double crochets in the same stitch. Then want to place your stitch marker in the last double crochet, and that brings you to the end of round 1. For round 2, you will make an increase in each of your existing stitches. That's 8 increases. That means you're going to put 2 double crochets into each stitch. It's double crochet number 1, and in the same spot double crochet number 2. Move to the next stitch. It's double crochet number 1, same spot, double crochet number 2. Move to the third stitch, first double crochet, second double crochet, move to the next stitch. You'll notice I'm working over my end to secure it. It's the first stitch, and there goes your second double crochet. Sometimes you split your yarn, just take the hook out and put it back in again so that the yarn is neat. Move on to the next one. That's 1 and 2 double crochets. Move on to the next one. It's 1 and 2 double crochets. Move to the next stitch. That's 1 and 2 double crochets. Take your stitch marker out. Make your final increase in that last stitch. It's double crochet number 1 and double crochet 2. Put the stitch marker back into position, and that brings you to the end of round 2. For round 3, you will follow a little mini pattern by making a double crochet in stitch 1 and an increase in stitch 2. That's 2 double crochets in the same stitch. You will repeat this little pattern until you reach the end of the round. So stitch 1, it's a double crochet, stitch 2 gets an increase. We're still working over our end as we go, securing it into place. Next repeat, stitch 1 gets a double crochet, stitch 2 gets an increase. Stitch 1 gets a double crochet, stitch 2 gets an increase. Stitch 3 gets a double crochet, stitch 4 gets an increase. Stitch 5 gets a double crochet, stitch 6 gets an increase. Stitch 1 gets a double crochet, stitch 2 gets an increase. Stitch 1 gets a double crochet, remove a stitch marker, make your final double crochet, should be an increase, so there should be 2 double crochets in that last stitch. Return your stitch marker to the final stitch, and that brings you to the end of round 3. For round 4, you will again follow a little mini pattern. You will start by making a double crochet in stitch 1, double crochet in stitch 2, followed by an increase in stitch 3. The little bell is just my puppy running around and having fun. Please ignore the sound. We're then going to repeat this little mini pattern all the way around until we reach our stitch marker again. There's the increase for our second repetition. Double crochet in stitch 1, double crochet in stitch 2, and an increase in stitch 3. Double crochet in stitch 1, double crochet in stitch 2, and an increase in stitch 3. Double crochet in stitch 1, double crochet in stitch 2, and an increase in stitch 3. Double crochet in stitch 1, double crochet in stitch 2, and an increase in stitch 3. Double crochet in stitch 1, double crochet in stitch 2, and an increase in stitch 3. Double crochet in stitch 1, double crochet in stitch 2, remove a stitch marker and make an increase in stitch 3. Replace the stitch marker in your last stitch, and that brings you to the end of round 4. For round 5, you will once again follow a little mini pattern where you make a double crochet in the first stitch, double crochet in the second, double crochet in the third, and an increase in the fourth stitch. It's double crochet 1, double crochet 2, double crochet 3, and the increase in the fourth stitch. You're going to repeat this until you get back to the stitch marker. It's double crochet 1, double crochet 2, double crochet 3, and an increase. And again, double crochet 1, double crochet 2, double crochet 3, and an increase. Double crochet 1, double crochet 2, double crochet 3, and an increase. Double crochet 1, double crochet 2, double crochet 3, and an increase. Double crochet 1, double crochet 2, double crochet 3, and an increase. Double crochet 1, double crochet 2, double crochet 3, and an increase. Then we've got one last repeat to go. It's double crochet 1, double crochet 2, double crochet 3, take the stitch marker out, make your final increase. Replace the stitch marker in the last stitch, and that brings you to the end of round 5. For round 6, you will make a double crochet in each stitch all the way around for a total of 40 double crochets. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. Remove the stitch marker, make stitch 40 in the final stitch. Place your stitch marker in the last stitch, and that brings you to the end of round 6. For round 7, you will again make a double crochet in each stitch all the way around for a total of 40 double crochets. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. Remove your stitch marker from the final stitch. Make stitch number 40. Place the stitch marker in the last stitch, and that brings you to the end of round 7. You'll notice that you're starting to form a little bowl as you do these rounds. Your bowl will become deeper and deeper. Also, you've got the right side is the inside of a bowl at the moment, the wrong side the outside of a bowl. I always push it this way so that the right side is on the outside from the word go. Round 8, you will again make 40 double crochets, 1 in each stitch until you're all the way around. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. Remove the stitch marker. Next stitch 40. Replace the stitch marker in the last stitch, and that brings you to the end of round 8, and you'll notice your bowl has gotten deeper again. For round 9, we are again making 40 double crochets, 1 in each stitch. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, just getting some more yarn, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. Remove your stitch marker and make your final stitch in its place. That's 40. Return your stitch marker to the last stitch, and that brings you to the end of round 9. For round 10, you will again be making 40 double crochets, 1 in each stitch. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, remove the stitch marker, make stitch 40 in that position, return the stitch marker to the last stitch of the round. Round 11, we're again making 40 double crochets, 1 in each stitch. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, remove the stitch marker, make stitch 40, replace the stitch marker in the last stitch, and that brings you to the end of round 11. For round 12, you will again make 40 double crochet stitches, 1 in each stitch. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. Remove a stitch marker and make stitch 40 in its place. Then replace your stitch marker in the last stitch, and that brings you to the end of round 12, and you've got a nice deep bowl. For round 13, we're again going to make 40 double crochets, 1 in each stitch. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. Remove the stitch marker, make your final double crochet in the last stitch. That brings you to 40. Replace the stitch marker and you're at the end of round 13. For round 14, you'll be following a little mini pattern by making a double crochet in the first stitch, a double crochet in the second stitch, a double crochet in the third stitch, and a decrease across the fourth and the fifth stitch. That's 1, 2, and 3 double crochets in the first 3 stitches. And then across stitch 4 and stitch 5, we're going to take the front loops only and make an invisible decrease. See, I enter from the bottom of the front loop, then I push my hook down and I again enter from the bottom of the front loop on the 5th stitch, so that I've got both of those front loops on my hook. Then we're going to hook the yarn, pull it through both front loops, so that we have 2 loops on our hook, as shown there. And then you're going to yarn over and pull through both loops, and that completes your invisible decrease. That's how you're going to be making your decreases throughout this pattern. Make sure that you don't go into the same stitch where you just decreased, that you actually go into the next stitch when you repeat the pattern. That's the first double crochet, second double crochet, third double crochet, and across stitch 4 and 5, we're making a decrease. Stitch 1 double crochet, stitch 2 double crochet, stitch 3 double crochet, and a decrease across 4 and 5. Then we repeat it again. Stitch 1 double crochet, stitch 2 double crochet, stitch 3 double crochet, across stitch 4 and 5, we make the decrease. And again. Stitch 1 double crochet, stitch 2 double crochet, stitch 3 double crochet, decrease across stitch 4 and 5. Repeat again. Stitch 1 double crochet, stitch 2 double crochet, stitch 3 double crochet, decrease across stitch 4 and 5. Repeat again. Stitch 1 double crochet, stitch 2 double crochet, stitch 3 double crochet, decrease across stitch 4 and 5. Then it's time for the final repetition. Stitch 1 double crochet, stitch 2 double crochet, stitch 3 double crochet, remove your stitch marker, and then make your decrease across stitch 4 and 5. Replace the stitch marker in the last stitch, and that brings you to the end of round 14. For round 15, you will follow a little mini pattern again, making a double crochet in the first stitch, double crochet in the second stitch and a decrease across stitch 3 and 4. You will repeat this pattern until you reach the stitch marker again. Double crochet stitch 1, double crochet stitch 2 and a decrease. Double crochet stitch 1, double crochet stitch 2 and a decrease across stitch 3 and 4. Double crochet stitch 1, double crochet stitch 2 and a decrease across stitch 3 and 4. Double crochet stitch 1, double crochet stitch 2 and a decrease across stitch 3 and 4. Double crochet stitch 1, double crochet stitch 2 and a decrease across stitch 3 and 4. Double crochet stitch 1, double crochet stitch 2 and a decrease across stitch 3 and 4. Time for the last repetition. Double crochet stitch 1, double crochet stitch 2 and you'll remove your stitch marker to make your final decrease across stitch 3 and 4. Replace the stitch marker in the last stitch and this brings you to the end of round 15. Now we are placing the stitch marker in the loop that's on our hook so that we can take our hook out without our work being undone, because we will be inserting safety eyes in the next round. It's now time to insert the safety eyes into the head. So you're going to need your 2 black safety eyes along with their plastic backings. You'll need 2 pins to mark the spots, and you will need your eye patches that you made from the previous video, because you will be inserting the eyes through both the eye patches and the head. You want to find your foundation chain where you started, and then you want to squish your head flat like that so that the foundation chain is at the top there. So you're basically folding it flat in half like this. This is just to make it easier for you to find the correct place to put your stitch markers, so that you know where to insert the eyes. Okay, now you see these 2 little holes at the top. That's your foundation chain where you started, over here. Now we're going to start counting rounds. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And there, between round 11 and 12, we insert a pin, because we want to insert our eyes between round 11 and 12. Now we've sort of guessed at the center for inserting this first pin. So it could move to the left or to the right, but it needs to stay in the same row that it is currently in. Okay, we're going to take the other pin and we're going to start counting to the sides. We want our eyes to be 9 stitches apart, so we're counting 5 stitches to the one side and then 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches to the other side. We will then check that there are in fact 9 stitches in between the eyes, and we will also count the stitches to the side of the eye, to the side of the head. They need to be the same amount of stitches in order to make sure that you have centralized your eyes. So if you have 6 on the one side, you should have 6 on the other side. Now, with safety eyes, once you've clipped them into place, they're not coming back out again. So be very sure about your positioning before you clip on any backs. Next, we're going to take the eye. That's the rounded side. The other side's a bit more pointy. You want to insert your safety eyes through that hole that you're seeing there on the rounded side. You want to do the same on both of these eye patches. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take your needle through the hole in the eye patch and through the hole that you just marked in the face, to make sure that you've got the correct positioning. This part is probably the trickiest part of a whole toy. And then you want to do the same with the second one on the other side. Again, you want the rounded part facing up and the pointy part facing down. You want to insert your pin into that foundation chain on your eye cover and through the same hole. So there we've got the positioning. Now what we want to do is we want to replace those pins that you see with actual safety eyes, and we want to make sure that the pin back of the safety eye goes through both the eye patch and the eye at the back. So there we're just pushing it through the eye patch without really removing the needle. It's a little tricky, but we don't want to lose our positioning. And then we're going to push it through the head as well. Once we're sure that we've got the right hole, we will remove the needle. There we go. You can see I'm just pressing to make it go through the little openings. So it's now through the eye patch and through the head. But we haven't put the backs on yet. So you can see here, if you look at the back, there is the pin coming through. It's now time to do the same with the other one, so that we can insert the front of the safety eye. These are 12mm solid black safety eyes that we're using here. Pressing first through the eye patch and then through the head as well, removing the pin once we're sure of our positioning. There we go. That's nicely through. And we have a look at it. Make sure that we are happy with where they are, how far apart they are, that we put it in the rounded side, not the pointy end. We're then going to twist it a little bit so we can see the backs. Take the plastic back and clip it on. This takes a bit of strength, especially if you've got a good quality safety eye, but just keep pressing until it's nice and tightly on. Do the same to the other eye, but remember, once you've done this, they're not coming back off again. So always be very sure that you have your eyes exactly where you want them before you do this. And there we go. You can see now your eye patches are still loose. They can twist and turn and be moved, but they are quite firmly attached with a safety eye to the head. Just want to leave them loose like that for now. For round 16, you will follow a mini pattern again by making a double crochet in the first stitch and a decrease across stitch 2 and 3. Firstly, you need to move your stitch marker back to the last stitch and insert your hook in the loop. That's double crochet in stitch 1, decrease across stitch 2 and 3, and then you repeat. Double crochet in stitch 1, decrease across stitch 2 and 3, double crochet in stitch 1, decrease across stitch 2 and 3, double crochet in stitch 1, decrease across stitch 2 and 3, double crochet in stitch 1, decrease across stitch 2 and 3, double crochet in stitch 1, decrease across stitch 2 and 3, double crochet in stitch 1, decrease across stitch 2 and 3. And for the final repetition, double crochet in stitch 1, remove the stitch marker so it's out of the way, decrease across stitch 2 and 3, place your stitch marker in the last stitch, and that takes you to the end of round 16. For round 17, you will follow a mini pattern by making a double crochet in the first stitch, a double crochet in the second stitch, followed by a decrease across stitch 3 and 4. You will repeat this 4 times until you reach the end of the round. So double crochet in stitch 1, double crochet in stitch 2, followed by a decrease across stitch 3 and 4. Double crochet in stitch 1, double crochet in stitch 2, and a decrease across stitch 3 and 4. It gets a little bit harder to work when it gets smaller like this. Just takes a bit of patience and practice. Let's double crochet 1, double crochet 2, remove the stitch marker, then make your decrease across stitch 3 and stitch 4. Replace the stitch marker in that last stitch, and that brings you to the end of round 17. For round 18, you will make a single crochet in each stitch until you reach the stitch marker. That's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, that's 5, that's 6, that's 7, that's 8, that's 9, that's 10, that's 11, remove a stitch marker, and make number 12. In the next round we're going to be stuffing, so you will again place your stitch marker inside the loop that's on the hook, clip it closed to secure it, and remove your hook. That brings you to the end of round 18. Next, we're going to be stuffing the head firmly with our polyester stuffing through the small little opening that we've got at the neck area. You're basically just going to take your stuffing. I cut open a throw pillow and use the insides of that as my stuffing. I find it's the cheapest stuffing, but also the best quality one for this type of thing. So as you can see, I'm just pushing it in there with my fingers. At first it's very empty and it's kind of easy to get the stuffing in there. Just keep pushing in. Make sure you're pushing it towards the top of the head and get some more stuffing and just keep adding. And keep compressing as you're pushing the stuffing into the head. Take some more stuffing. Now, stuffing your toy is actually a critical skill that you need to master. If you understuff your toy, your shape won't look right. It will look like it's got dents in it. If you overstuff your toy, your stuffing's going to start showing through your stitches and your toy is going to be too hard. So you want to find a happy medium where once you've stuffed it, if you take your thumb and you press into the shape, when you let go, the shape should spring back into the original rounded shape that you gave it. If the dent stays there, you haven't stuffed enough. If the dent doesn't jump back into shape, you have stuffed too much, or if you can't make a dent. You can see we're starting to get our shape now. It's still understuffed at the moment. So we're going to add some more. At this point, I start shaping it for the roundness. So every time I'm sticking my fingers in here, I'm actually curving them to the sides and pressing the stuffing not only down but also sideways to round out both the top of the head and the sides and cheeks. So it's important that you keep stuffing it in to the sides there, nice and smooth. I know it sounds silly, but stuffing can make or break your toy. So take your time when you do this, do it carefully, a little bit at a time, and always pushing it into any holes that you may find. You want to stuff your head nice and firmly. Adding a bit more still. If you look carefully, you can see how my fingers are actually moving to the sides instead of just going straight down. A little bit more, we're not quite there yet. You basically want to create a situation where the stuffing has all been pushed to the sides and you've got a shaft in the middle that your finger fits into. So the last thing you do is just put a bit of stuffing into the shaft and then it would be all sorted. You can see I keep pressing on it. That pressing also helps you to shape it into the ball that you want, as well as telling you whether you have put enough stuffing or not. At this point, I am pushing stuffing into any areas where I've seen dents on the outside. Testing firmness there. You can see it bounces right back. So we're getting to a good level of stiffness at this point. Now we can just start filling in that shaft that we created. Just firm up this area right by the opening on the sides, because this will be your neck at the end of the day, which will have to hold the head up. So you want that nice and firm. See how I'm demonstrating there with my finger the movement that I make inside the head. And see, we found a bit of a dent there, So we're just forcing some stuffing into the dented area. And then filling the shaft. Once again, your stuffing can compress quite a lot, so it's always possible to add a little bit more. So you've got to keep an eye on how much stuffing exactly you are putting in. There we go. Getting close to ready now. See, it's got a good firmness now, so we're rolling it. The rolling just helps to smooth out the shape. Make sure that we've got a nice round head in every direction, that there's no weird lumps or bumps. It's a good way to help shape it. And there you've got it, one fully stuffed head. For round 19, you will work in the back loops only while you make a single crochet in each stitch until you reach the end of the round. We're going to start by changing color, so you snip your white off short, remove the stitch marker from the loop that should be on your hook, place the stitch marker in your last single crochet that you made, insert your hook into the loop. Now you're going to grab hold of your purple yarn and you're going to hold the two shorter ends together. Hook your purple yarn and pull it through the loop. Pull the white yarn tail tight so that the white stitch disappears completely and it looks like only the purple is on the hook. Then you're going to knot your two yarn tails together. Make sure you knot them nice and tight so that they stay put. You can then hide them inside the head or snip them off short, whichever you prefer. And now we start, remember, back loop only. Next one. I find this round a little bit tricky because it's now small, it's been fully stuffed, but with a little bit of practice, you'll get used to it. That's 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Remove the stitch marker and make your final single crochet. Number 12. Place the stitch marker in the last stitch, and that brings you to the end of round 19. For round 20, you will follow a little mini pattern, but you will still be working into the back loops only. And the first stitch, you're going to make a double crochet. Then in the second stitch, back loop only, you're going to make an increase. You're going to repeat this pattern until you reach the end of your round. First back loop gets a double crochet. Second back loop gets an increase. First back loop gets a double crochet. Second back loop gets an increase. First back loop gets a double crochet. Please excuse the neighbors' very noisy dogs. Second back loop gets an increase. First back loop gets a double crochet. Second back loop gets an increase. Then at our final repetition, first back loop gets a double crochet. Remove a stitch marker. Last back loop gets an increase. Replace the stitch marker in the final stitch, and that brings you to the end of round 20. For round 21, you will make a double crochet in each stitch until you reach the end of the round. You will be using both loops. That's one. That's two. That's three. That's four. That's five. That's six. That's seven. That's 8, that's 9, that's 10, that's 11, that's 12, that's 13, 14, that's 15, that's 16, that's 17, remove the stitch marker, make your final stitch in that position, that's 18, replace the stitch marker in the last stitch, and that brings us to the end of round 21. For round 22, you will make a single crochet stitch in each stitch until you reach the end of the round. That's 1, that's 2, that's 3, that's 4, that's 5, that's 6, 7, that's 8, that's 9, that's 10, that's 11, that's 12, that's 13, that's 14, that's 15, that's 16, that's 17, remove the stitch marker, make number 18, place the stitch marker back in its position, and that brings you to the end of round 22. For round 23, we're going to start by changing color and then working in the back loops only, making a single crochet in each stitch until we reach the end of the round. So we started by snipping off the purple to a short end. Taking hold of our white yarn, we're going to hold the two short ends together, just like we did last time. Pull the white through the loop, take hold of the purple end and pull it tight so that the purple stitch disappears completely and it looks like you've only got a white stitch on your hook. Then you want to knot your two ends together, same as last time, and pull that knot nice and tight so it doesn't come loose again. You then have a choice of either hiding it inside the head or snipping the ends off short before you carry on with your crocheting. I've chosen to snip it short this time. Remember, you will be working in the back loops only for the entire round. Now carry on with the white. That's us making our first single crochet in the back loop. That's 2, that's 3, that's 4, that's 5, that's 6, that's 7, that's 8, that's 9, that's 10, that's 11, that's 12, that's 13, that's 14, that's 15, that's 16, 17, move the stitch marker and then make stitch 18 in its place. Going to replace the stitch marker into the last stitch, and that brings us to the end of round 23. For round 24, we're again going to work in the back loops only, but we're going to follow a little mini pattern where we will make a double crochet in the first stitch, a double crochet in the second stitch, and an increase in the third stitch by making 2 double crochets in the same stitch. I'm going to repeat this pattern until we reach the end of a round. Stitch 1 gets a double crochet, stitch 2 gets a double crochet, stitch 3 gets an increase. Stitch 1 gets a double crochet, stitch 2 gets a double crochet, stitch 3 gets an increase. Stitch 1 gets a double crochet, stitch 2 gets a double crochet, stitch 3 gets an increase. Stitch 1 gets a double crochet, stitch 2 gets a double crochet, and stitch 3 gets an increase. One more time. Stitch 1 gets stitch 1 gets a double crochet, stitch 2 gets a double crochet, remove the stitch marker, and the final stitch gets an increase. Replace the stitch marker in the last stitch, and this brings us to the end of round 24. For round 25, you will make a double crochet in each stitch until you reach the end of the round. You'll be working through both loops again. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, remove the stitch marker, make number 24 in that final position, then replace the stitch marker in the last stitch. For round 26, you'll be following a little mini pattern by making a double crochet in the first stitch, a double crochet in the second stitch, a double crochet in the third stitch, and then an increase in the fourth stitch. You're going to repeat this pattern until you reach the end of the round. Stitch 1 gets a double crochet, stitch 2 gets a double crochet, stitch 3 gets a double crochet, stitch 4 gets an increase. Stitch 1 gets a double crochet, stitch 2 gets a double crochet, stitch 3 gets a double crochet, stitch 4 gets an increase. Stitch 1 gets a double crochet, stitch 2 gets a double crochet, stitch 3 gets a double crochet, stitch 4 gets an increase. Stitch 1 gets a double crochet, stitch 2 gets a double crochet, stitch 3 gets a double crochet, stitch 4 gets an increase. Stitch 1 gets a double crochet, stitch 2 gets a double crochet, stitch 3 gets a double crochet, stitch 4 gets an increase after you remove the stitch marker. Replace the stitch marker in your last stitch, and that brings you to the end of round 26. For round 27, you will make a double crochet in each stitch until you reach the end of the round. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Remove a stitch marker and make stitch 30 in the last position. Place the stitch marker back in the last stitch, and that brings us to the end of round 27. For round 28, we will again make a double crochet in each stitch all the way around. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Remove the stitch marker and make stitch 30 in the last spot. Replace the stitch marker into the last stitch, and that brings you to the end of round 28. For round 29, you will be following a little mini pattern. You're going to make a double crochet in stitch 1, a double crochet in stitch 2, a double crochet in stitch 3, and a decrease across stitch 4 and 5. Repeat this pattern until you reach the end of the round. It's a double crochet in stitch 1, double crochet in stitch 2, double crochet in stitch 3, and a decrease across stitch 4 and 5. Double crochet in stitch 1, double crochet in stitch 2, double crochet in stitch 3, and a decrease across stitch 4 and 5. Double crochet in stitch 1, double crochet in stitch 2, double crochet in stitch 3, and a decrease across stitch 4 and 5. Double crochet in stitch 1, double crochet in stitch 2, and double crochet in stitch 3, decrease across stitch 4 and 5. Last repetition, double crochet in stitch 1, double crochet in stitch 2, double crochet in stitch 3, remove that stitch marker and then make a decrease across stitch 4 and 5. Replace your stitch marker into the last stitch, and that brings us to the end of round 29. For round 30, you'll again be following a little mini pattern where you make a double crochet in stitch 1, a double crochet in stitch 2, and a decrease across stitch 3 and 4. You'll repeat this pattern until you reach the end of a round. That's double crochet stitch 1, double crochet stitch 2, decrease across stitch 3 and 4, double crochet in stitch 1, double crochet in stitch 2, decrease across stitch 3 and 4, double crochet in stitch 1, double crochet in stitch 2, decrease across stitch 3 and 4, double crochet in stitch 1, double crochet in stitch 2, decrease across stitch 3 and 4, double crochet in stitch 1, double crochet in stitch 2, and a decrease across stitch 3 and 4 after you remove that stitch marker. Place the stitch marker into the last stitch, and that brings us to the end of round 30. Next, we're going to return to stuffing our work. We will start by stuffing the neck area very firmly. Take your stitch marker, place it into the loop on your hook so that you can remove your hook. This way your work won't pull loose while you're stuffing. Now, that purple little bit that you see there, that's the neck area. You want to stuff that very firmly because that's what's holding up your head. You don't want your head to flip-flop later once you've finished stuffing. So most of the stuffing here is focusing on that area, that join between body and head. You want to make sure that you really push the stuffing in there quite firmly. Getting lots of stuffing there where the neck area is. I use my thumbs to just really push it in. You still want to make sure that you've gotten it nice and firm. You can see when I'm shaking it there, my head's not wobbly at all, so I know that I've gotten enough stuffing in there. Now you don't want to stuff the entire body while you're doing this, because if you stuff too firmly now, you'll have a problem with your tension on the next couple of rounds. So it's okay for there to be stuffing in the white part of the body, but you don't want it to be a lot or very stiff. Don't worry about it being understuffed. Just move your stitch marker back to its normal position so you're ready to continue crochet. For round 31, we will again follow a little mini pattern. You make a double crochet in stitch 1 and decrease in stitch 2 and 3. Repeat until you reach the end of the round. Double crochet in stitch 1, decrease across stitch 2 and 3. Double crochet in stitch 1, decrease across stitch 2 and 3. Double crochet in stitch 1, decrease across stitch 2 and 3. Double crochet in stitch 1, decrease across stitch 2 and 3. Final repetition. Double crochet in stitch 1, remove that stitch marker, then make a decrease across stitch 2 and 3. Replace the stitch marker in the last stitch, and that brings you to the end of round 31. For round 32, you will make 6 decreases. Let's decrease 1. Let's decrease 2. Let's decrease 3. Decrease 4. Decrease 5. Remove your stitch marker. Then decrease 6. And then you're going to finish off with a slip stitch in the next stitch. Snip your yarn tail. It doesn't have to be very long, you're not sewing anything with it. Pull the yarn tail through, and that brings you to the end of round 32. It's now time to stuff the rest of the body firmly. As you can see, it's quite empty, but our decreases look really nice at the end there. Now what I've got on my hand there is a 5mm hook that's got a flat end. You can see I used it to just press it through the opening. It's a very small opening, but using the back of the hook, you can add stuffing in this manner to it. Take small amounts of stuffing, large amounts won't go in, and just push it in. If you don't have a crochet hook like this one, you can also use the flat back end of a chopstick or anything that's got a flat end like that. The reason we do it this way is if you stuff first and then do your decreases, you end up with these big gaps between decreases that show your stuffing through, and that just doesn't look like a nicely finished product. People don't like that, so particularly if you want to sell your product, this is the best way to complete your stuffing on any shape. That last little hole after you finish off is only just big enough to push stuffing through. You use your hook in much the same way that you used your fingers for the head. You also push to the side, you use it to move the stuffing around on the inside to create that nice rounded full shape that you want to have when you are making the body. Now we want to get nice and round, and we want nice and firm as well. So we're just going to keep adding stuffing until we reach a nice firm feel. You can see I sort of squish it a little bit every now and then just to feel how tightly it's been stuffed. You don't want to understuff where there's got holes and stuff in it, and you also don't want to overstuff where your stuffing is starting to show through all of your stitches. You want to be able, when you squeeze it, you want the shape to be able to change, and when you let go of the squeeze, you want your shape to jump back into the original shape. That's when you know you've got the right amount of stuffing in your toy. Also, you can see I press it from the sides and I sort of turn it around and look at it from every angle. It's important because that shows me if I have any holes or any bumps or lumps in my shape. And you can also improve your shape by pressing it from the outside. So when you do find a lump, pushing on the lump can often smooth it out from the outside. Just adding a little bit more. Starting to feel good. Now we're rolling it between the hands to give that nice roundness to it. It just evens the shape out, much like you did when you played with clay when you were little. We're now going to close up that last little hole that we used to stuff through. So we need our tapestry needle, and we just put our yarn end onto the needle. Now what we're going to do is we're going to weave this yarn end in and out around the opening with small stitches. So going right around the opening. And then you pull tight, and when you pull tight, that last little hole closes up. Pull it tight again. As you can see, it's nicely closed. Now I go down the middle of the hole and I just stick my needle in and out anywhere on the body, pull my yarn tail through, and I just leave it hanging there for now. We'll be hiding the yarn tail later. See, we've got our little eye patches there, they're still loose. We'll still need to sew those down, but this is what it looks like so far. Our next task is to use invisible stitches to attach our eye patches to the head. As you can see, I'm smoothing them out. They've curled up a little bit while we were crocheting, and we want them to be nice and flat against the head. So I'm just pulling on them a little bit, rolling them a little bit. Next we're going to take pins to pin that edge into the position that we want. As you can see, the rounded edge of the eye patch is at the top of the eye, pointing inwards towards the bridge of the nose, and the more pointy end of the eye patch is pointing down and to the sides. And I'm just using the pins to secure it exactly where I want, because at this point you can pull the eye patch around into a different position since it hasn't been sewed. And we don't want that happening while we are sewing. Now, once you've pinned it, please take the time to take a look at your eye patches and make sure that they are indeed even. You want those pointy ends to point at the same angle and in the same general direction. A mirrored direction, but the same direction. You can see that one was a little bit off, so I'm taking out the pins, wiggling it into a better position and re-pinning it. Don't be afraid to re-pin things if they're not 100% right. Positioning is 90% of the battle. See there? Yeah, they are now in the correct position. You can then pick either eye. I've started with the left one. Put the yarn tail on your tapestry needle, and we're now going to sew with invisible stitches to attach this to the head permanently. Now, what makes a stitch invisible is that you actually work under the eye patch, not next to it. So every time you insert your needle into the white head, you want to insert it underneath the eye patch. If you insert it next to the eye patch, your stitches will be visible. If you insert it under the eye patch, your stitches won't be visible. See how I come from underneath and into the eye patch? So you don't see the stitches that I've made, even though it's purple on white. Now, I keep doing that, working through the eye patch and making sure that each entry and exit point is under the eye patch. I pull tight after each stitch to make sure that it's nicely secured. And we just carefully work our way around. Notice that I don't put my yarn over the edge. I keep working from underneath and in. So those little V's of your final round of stitches, they stay nice and clean, and this gives a nice finish to your eye patch. If you just work over it instead of coming in from underneath, it won't look as neat and as well finished. So whenever I refer to invisible stitches in a pattern, this is what I mean. Stitches that are made underneath the thing you are sewing into place, so that they cannot be seen with the naked eye. I always use the yarn tail of the piece that I've created to do the sewing with. When you've already got the perfectly matched color, it's already anchored by being attached to the piece that you're sewing on, and it just gives for a neater, easier result with less ends to work away. Now as I go, I remove the pins that are holding the eye patch because my stitches are now holding it into place. Sometimes it can be hard to do sewing like this, so I also have a small set of pliers. If you find that your needle is getting stuck or you can't pull it through, just use the tiny pliers and grip the needle with that, and it'll help you to pull it through. Alternatively, husbands, sons, boyfriends, very useful for this. Just be careful to keep your shape in the shape that you pinned it. You don't want to pull it in a direction that it's not supposed to be going. Getting towards the last pin there now. It's also one of the reasons why you need to stuff nice and firmly. If you have understuffed your toy, when you start sewing parts to it, it will start having dents in it that shouldn't be there, and your shape will look completely wrong. If you've overstuffed your toy, you won't be able to get your needle in properly, and you'll have a real battle on every single stitch. But if you've stuffed it just right, it would be fairly easy to sew something in place. And after you've done the pressing that you can see I'm doing there as I sew, it just jumps back into position where it should be. You don't have to worry about it becoming malformed. Almost back to the starting point now. You see it's a little bit harder at the end to get your needle in from underneath because most of the eye patch has now been secured. Really is worth the effort though. See how nice and clean that edge is after sewing. That's the look you want when you are sewing on anything. You can see I'm overlapping my starting point because I don't want this eye patch to come loose. And then I go in through the eye patch and out just randomly in the middle here. It's not a specific stitch, it's just a couple of stitches away from the eye patch. Cut the yarn tail a little bit shorter so it's not bugging me, and just let it dangle there while you do the exact same thing with the second eye patch. You're going to sew it in exactly the same way using invisible stitches going all the way around, and once you're done, you're going to have that yarn tail come out at the exact same spot as the first one. And see, sometimes your other yarn tail gets caught up in your stitches, so that's why we cut it shorter, so that it doesn't happen so often. Just pull it out and carry on working with your stitches. Getting towards the end now. Just working over the point where we started so that we can secure it properly. And then we're going to make sure that the needle exits at exactly the same stitch where we exited for the last eye, so that our two yarn tails from the two eye patches are coming out of the same stitch hole. Now this is a little trick that we use throughout Amigurumi. We always try to get two ends to go through the same hole, and then we knot them together, as you can see here. And once you're happy that that knot is secure and you've pulled it nice and tight, you take a scissor and you snip off the ends short like that. You take your crochet hook and you use the back of it to push the knot into the head or body or whichever part you're working on, like that. And as you can see, it's disappeared completely. So you've both hidden your yarn tails and you've made sure that they can't work their way back out again for the thing to come loose. Before you go, don't forget to hit that like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to Crochet Republic for more crochet tips, tricks and creative projects. Ring that bell to stay updated on all our upcoming yarn-filled escapades. Thank you for joining us on this crochet journey. You can also find Crochet Republic on Etsy, Facebook and Instagram. Links are in the introduction below the video for easy access. Handmade with love until we meet again in the Crochet Republic. Bye for now.